Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. Hello, Cosmic Warriors. Okay. Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. Okay, so today we're going to be talking all about the nodes changing signs. So the nodes will be entering Pisces and Virgo from the 11th of January 2025 all the way up until the 26th of July 2026. So really this 18-month period with the nodes changing. As the North Node enters Pisces, the South Node will enter Virgo. Yes, we're going to get into your horoscopes today. Now, before we do, if you enjoy the video, if you find it to be helpful, beneficial, please make sure to give it a like and just subscribe if you haven't already. Plus, if you would like to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find all of the astrology products I offer. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin with this quick overview of the astrology. So what I want you to remember is that from July of 2023, the North Node has been in Aries and the South Node has been in Libra. So we're really coming to the tail end of the nodes being in these signs. And the significant thing I want you to remember about this is that we will experience some interesting shifts and changes throughout 2025 within Aries and Pisces. Keep in mind the North Node has been in Aries since July of 2023, and then the North Node will come into Pisces from January of 2025. So there's really this interesting conversation happening within our Aries Pisces houses. Of course, we also notice that in March, April time, of 2025, Venus and Mercury retrograde will occur in both signs. There's just something about the threshold here, this Aries Pisces threshold. Aries is all about new beginnings, action orientated, goal orientated as well. It's very much about the self, starting things, new chapters indeed. And it's very fresh, right? It's very fresh, it's very new, it's very innocent in many ways too, Aries can be. But you see, Pisces is so much deeper. Pisces is about spiritual wisdom. Pisces is about the spiritual realm, really moving beyond the physical and to the spiritual. And we think about divinity, connections with a higher power, prayer, salvation. There's a very cleansing energy to Pisces. So yes, we want to really consider how Pisces represents endings, rebirth, transformation, and Aries represents new beginnings. So it's about the start of something new. And then what we also see here is that the very ruler of Pisces, Neptune, comes into Aries at the end of March for just a little bit, just a short period of time, giving us a taster of what's to come when Neptune properly enters Aries next year, so 2026. And then what will also happen is Saturn will follow, again, just for a short period. And then the really powerful thing, and this is what I have really went into within the 2025 horoscopes for all of the signs. So make sure you check out your video. It's just a bit of a guide for the whole year ahead. But I highlighted in those horoscope videos that the really powerful thing about March time, April time of 2025 is that, yes, there will be the solar eclipse in Aries. I mean, that will take place whenever these retrogrades are happening, right? There will be an eclipse season, a retrograde season. Saturn and Neptune will be on the move as well. Of course, Saturn doesn't enter into Aries until around about May time, but it's really this very potent energy. Okay, there's a lot of potency, especially when we think about the Aries Pisces threshold. We're entering into a new era, okay, because these outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, will all be changing signs, okay, going from Earth and water to air and fire. So, indeed, a lot of inspiration, excitement, passion, many revelations, innovation. It's all happening. This is not to say that it's all fine and dandy and there's nothing to be aware of either. There are, possible cautions, dangers, things to be mindful of with these shifts. But this is still the dawning of a new era. And then what we also notice is that coming into 2025, Mars will be retrograde in Cancer, and then Jupiter itself, keep in mind that Jupiter is also the ruler of Pisces, the traditional ruler. Jupiter comes into Cancer June of 2025. So it's interesting because there will be this trine influence between the North Node in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer, also between Mars in Cancer and the North Node in Pisces. So a lot of emotional depth, healing. I think really, 2025 is important for our emotional awareness. It's a very cleansing time. Consider also, and this is something that I discussed with astrologer and numerologist Amanda on her podcast, Soul Sessions. But we're coming into this universal year 9. So it is really about shedding, releasing, letting go. And these things are very much tied to Pisces. But with Cancer involved, this is so much about emotion, our moods, nurturing ourselves, nourishing ourselves, looking after ourselves, especially when we think about these massive transitions that are up ahead, these rebirths, these new chapters, these new beginnings for us. So when we think about this too, furthermore, with the numerology, 2026 will welcome a universal year of 1. So that really is this strength and power to do with new beginnings. So kind of maybe think of 2025 as really this time to release, to shed, to let go what is not serving you. And we're going to get into this then when we think about this axis of Pisces and Virgo. Now, do keep in mind that, sure, the nodes and these signs will still continue on into 2026. And so maybe this is where we're going to see just more of this, okay, clarity, tying up loose ends. So consider those themes coming into 2026 as well. But we're really going to be focusing mostly on this Pisces, Virgo axis today for each of the signs. So I hope that this section, that you find it to be somewhat helpful. It's just really a general overview that yes, we are in store for major changes up ahead when we look to the astrology. Okay, so let's now get into your horoscopes. Okay, so first up then we have Aries. All right, Aries. First and foremost, I want to say that you have came into your own a great deal, I think, since July of 2023. I think you have stretched yourself by really getting in line with your passions and following the things that you really want to accomplish. So we think about your aims and your ambitions in this life. A big part of your story since July of 2023 has been about your independence, your leadership, your bravery, your courage, showing up for yourself, right? This has been a serious journey of self-development. And at the same time, you have been, I would say, mindful. Hopefully you have become a bit more mindful about how you might retaliate or react to people. and to instead, in many ways, come from a place of being a bit rational, level-headed, balanced, a bit more cooperative, right? So trying to maybe respect other people's opinions or listening a bit more. But we also want to think about you easing up on any qualities such as codependency or getting caught up in other people's feedback to such an extent that, you don't take action. So hopefully this has been a great time for you when it comes to how you show up independently, but also how you show up in collaboration with other people. Recognizing that, yes, there is strength found in numbers. And so teamwork has been, I think, a big theme for you. Great. At the same time, what we've also noticed is that Neptune and Saturn were in your 12th house throughout that same period, right? So what was also happening for you since July of 2023 is a lot of inner discovery, right? This has been largely about self-exploration in that you've been diving into your hidden facets, trying to connect with your hidden self. Any blockages there, anything that limits you, anything that you're maybe deceived about, not so sure of. It's been great, I think, as a way to maybe see where you might be getting in your own way. We think about self-undoing to do with the 12th house. So perhaps your self-undoing has been associated with being delusional in some respects, maybe being a bit too caught up in a fantasy, caught up in a dream. Hopefully then there's been a bit more pragmatism for you, right? Things have been somewhat more realistic, bringing your visions into this more realistic view. So for you, I think it's going to be really exciting in many ways when Saturn and Neptune both come into your sign throughout 2025. Naturally, as I said at the beginning, this will be a taster of what's to really come for you. But I think in many ways, you've been doing the behind the scenes work, right? You've been working perhaps quite diligently, quite hard behind the scenes, out of the sight, out of the view of the public eye. And I think you've also been aligning more so with your purpose and what is really truth for you, not just materially, but this is also spiritually, right? So when Saturn and Neptune do eventually enter your sign, we're going to really see you come into your own, I think. I think this is where we're going to see you strive to accomplish great things. Of course, there will be a whole new set of challenges, really, which we're not going to get too much into because what we want to do now is we want to focus on the nodes, okay? So as the South Node comes into Virgo, the North Node will enter Pisces, activating this axis of the spiritual and the physical. So what we want to view this as, well, this is about you moving more toward this greater self-acceptance, the ability to let go when you need to accept the flow when it comes to life often, in that there's only so much you can control. There's a lot of spiritual wisdom, I think, that's really going to come into this. And at the same time, this is about recognizing times when you may jump in to fix, to help, to make sure that, okay, there has to be this order to things. And if it's not done perfectly, if it's not done to the standard that you set for yourself, then it must be ruined, right? So hopefully what we can see for you is you drawing from, yes, some healthy forms of helping and being there to support, especially when we think about how you can show up as being a member of service, being a person who really wants to help other people when it comes to your services, when it comes to your work, your job. We could also look at this as you really taking things on when it comes to routine and having this way of being productive, right? To be somewhat productive, efficient, to really be efficient. You can draw from those gifts, I think. But at the same time, we want to make sure that you're not doing it to such an extent that you lose sight of the spiritual, that you lose sight of the work that you've already been doing behind the scenes, right? To try and not lose sight of what is really important when we really consider, the grand scheme of things, when we consider what you can do to maybe relax, let go a little bit, recharge properly. Basically, this is very much, I think, about your well-being. This is about your health. This is about managing your stress levels, managing your workload. Aries, let's think of it this way. With you being very much in the spotlight, if you think about it, with the North Node being in your sign since July of 2023, how can you now step back just for a period of time? To step back and just allow for the inner work, the spiritual work, the behind the scenes work that you've been doing, to let those things really grow, to form. Things will come into this really neat order, I think, provided that you don't push or insist on having every single little detail correct. Freaking out, fussing, getting caught up in a lot of this nervous tension. I think, Aries, if you don't have spiritual practice yet, which honestly is a little bit, would surprise me, especially if you are an Aries and maybe you're an adult, right? And you've maybe taken on more of this mature, responsible role when it comes to a spiritual practice. But still, if this has not been the case for you, hopefully the North Node coming into the 12th will kind of guide you, support you. It will act as this guiding force, I think. This guiding force of compassion, self-love, forgiveness, Aries. My goodness, allow for the waters of Pisces to cleanse you, to purify you. Oh, I think this is going to be a really interesting time for you to connect with divinity, with a higher power, with the spiritual. Ultimately, Aries, I think this is about you being present with yourself, being present, living for the now, appreciating what you already have, and just allowing for other things to accumulate, to build, to work themselves out in this really neat way when you think about the South Node being in Virgo. I think with the South Node in Virgo, whenever we do fuss, whenever we do get ourselves into this frenzy and everything's so imperfect, it becomes this never-ending loop. You loop and loop and loop, and it just becomes this fixation, this compulsive behavior where you think, oh, I need to fix that, I need to change that. So breathe out, hopefully, and respect the flow, the timings of things, and be present with yourself, Aries. And that within itself, I think, will bring so much clarity and self-acceptance. Thank you, Aries. And now on to Taurus. So Taurus. Well, Taurus, what a journey it has been for you. Let's explore how the North Node has been in your 12th, and the South Node has been in your sixth since July of 2023. And so this story, this nodal journey for you has been largely about connecting with self, but connecting with self in such a way that it's behind the scenes. People don't really see your growth. It's not really physical. This is more you being in solitude, reading, journaling, retreating, self-care, looking after your mind, recognizing reoccurring thoughts that may come up, really being present with yourself. You know, we think about Aries in the 12th house here for you, Taurus, and what this can often signify is that there's a lot of anger underneath the surface. There's a lot of pent-up tension, pent-up energy that's just waiting to be released. And so maybe the North Node since July of 2023 has been really quite remarkable for you. Think of it this way too, right? Chiron has been in Aries for a good few years. So we think about Chiron playing a role when it comes to the North Node being in this sign, very much looking to any wounds, scars, rejections, criticisms to do with leadership, to do with taking charge, being courageous. And so I think behind the scenes, this is where you've been really making the moves to sort of look at these potential wounds related to self, related to the times, you know, maybe where you've been pushed out, picked on, told things about yourself that weren't true, for example. And maybe a big part of it too has been this journey with respect to what you really believe in more on a spiritual level. So I think these themes have strongly came up for you along your journey, Taurus. And at the same time, we have also noticed this greater sense of balance and harmony, restoring the balance here when it comes to your everyday, when it comes to what is practical, physical, thinking about the mundane, your routines, your daily habits. Well, I think this is where you've been really bringing into focus, okay, a healthier work-life balance. This is what's important to me. This is what I'm striving for. Yeah, these are the themes that have really came up for you. Being able to set time aside, you know, for the things that matter, for the people you value, for the people that you appreciate in life. And to maybe come out of this mindset where it is all about, you know, the daily grind and work and always having to push, always having to do. I think this has been quite interesting for you when it comes to living a slower life, right? Living at a slower pace. Consider even Jupiter itself was transiting your first house whilst the nodes were in Aries and Libra. So I think really, truly what's being brought into more of an awareness in your life is being able to be patient, to live a life where it is more gradual and steady. It's just this attitude for you, Taurus, where you think, why am I rushing? Why should I rush? And so, yeah, these insights have came through in many ways over the past 18 months or so. Plus, let's consider how Saturn and Neptune have been in your 11th house. So they've been transiting your 11th house throughout the same time period. So we've also been seeing you setting healthier boundaries, healthier limitations with relation to groups and teams and friendships, just thinking more along the lines of quality over quantity. This is about the very substance of the kinds of groups that you're a part of. this has been about the dedication that you've shown, even when it comes to your future hopes, aims, your wishes here. We really think about you making pretty solid moves, mature moves, being responsible. Yes, showing up as this dedicated figure. And also addressing anything that is deceptive, anything that is overly fantasy related, maybe wishful thinking comes into this, building castles in the sky comes into this. But I would also say, equally, there has been a lot of belief, right? Believing in the impossible, believing that your dreams will come true, having the ability to not just dream the thing, but to make the dream come true with Saturn coming into Pisces. So we think about with Pisces in the 11th house for you, a big part of your future aims is about the fantasy. It is about the dream. It is about coming into unison, unity, togetherness with other people and showing compassion and people's feelings being respected and listened to. There's just a lot of sharing involved, I think, to share space with others and to respect even the generosity, the kindness of other people, to show appreciation for these things, for you to also be quite charitable and giving and really very kind toward other people. So these themes have really come through, and you've been quite mature. You've been growing in your wisdom. I think you have been committing to some sort of plan when it comes to these areas in your life. Then you see the North Node will come into Pisces and the South Node will come into Virgo. So with the South Node coming into your 5th house in Virgo, this will be about you refining your skills when it comes to your hobbies, your creativity, and also looking at and bringing awareness to times when you might jump in this really compulsive way to help or fix or serve romantic partners. Even thinking about the 5th house through a lens of self-expression, okay? So your self-expression could be to, okay, sure, want to provide practical advice to other people, helping them in simplified ways. But the South Node in Virgo says, sure, okay, you can draw from your gifts and your skills there, but also be mindful of times when you might unnecessarily do that, when there may be this compulsive quality to the fixing. So when we look to the North Node in the 11th, a big part of this is how to be somewhat present, to be in the flow, to get curious about letting go a little bit when it comes to grips, when it comes to your future aims. So, of course, with the nodes, it is a bit of both, right? There is a balance to the nodes. But I think if you live on too far of the extreme here, when it comes to this Virgo quality, this, I think, can take you out of the present when it comes to really sitting with people, being available with others, to be in community with others. So sort of thinking of it as, instead of getting caught up in minor details, getting caught up in, this needs to be perfect until, it won't be perfect until I do this, this, and this, then it's sort of like, well, when are people going to see what you have to offer, what you have to present? And so I think the North Node can maybe teach you a thing or two about just allowing for people, for the people to have the say, so to speak. You can't really manage the opinions and the approvals of other people, if you will. And I think also a part of this is to use some healthy discernment, right? With the South Node in Virgo, to use healthy discernment when it comes to maybe fun time, free time, how you may be spending your time. I mean, is it that you're spending your free time just worrying, making yourself sick, with worry and panic? Or how can you then, in this way, go to the grip, right? Go to the grip and say, this is how I'm feeling and this is what's coming up for me. This is really a good time then for you in this regard, Taurus, to let people in on what's happening for you. Any fears, any upsets. This, I think, is really about community, leaning on support, and being involved with people who are compassionate and empathetic. And at the same time, if you find yourself maybe becoming overly involved in other people's woes, worries, their suffering, right? There can be the whole martyr, savior stuff to do with Pisces. So if you find yourself in these cycles, these reoccurring patterns, hopefully you can also step back a little bit and, think about your own self-care, right? Your self-care. And that is, I suppose, a theme that I talked about in your horoscope for 2025 is that it is a big year for self-care, especially when we consider how Saturn and Neptune will both come into your 12th house throughout the year for that short period of time before they begin their full transits throughout 2026. Okay, thank you, Taurus. And now on to Gemini. Okay, Gemini. So since July of 2023, the nodes have been in your 11th and 5th houses. So you have certainly been showing up as bold, as courageous, as brave within grips. You have certainly been a major initiator when it comes to getting groups of like-minded people together, when it comes to forming new connections, new relationships, new friendships. This has also been a major period for, following, taking the lead when it comes to your future aims. So the path that you have laid out for yourself when it comes to your future aims and goals, you've been like, right, okay, I'm going to do it. I can do it. Yes, I can. At the same time, we've also noticed that you've been showing up in quite diplomatic, fair, reasonable, rational ways within your romantic relationships, for one, but also this has been about setting the time aside, making the time for your hobbies, what you enjoy. And I would say, my goodness, you being very artistic and creative, making things beautiful here, Gemini. And I would also suggest here too that this has been a really good opportunity for you to tune in with the things that you love, the things that bring you joy, that make you feel happy, make you feel good. And maybe a big part of the things that make you feel good is being able to relate to others, to collaborate with others, to join together. But equally, hey, this has also been about easing up on any times when it becomes this case of codependency, agreeing too much, agreeing to the point of you want to explode because you're like, actually, I didn't want to agree to that, but I did, and now I'm annoyed. So hopefully the North Node in Aries has taught you a thing or two about being quite firm yet fair when it comes to communicating what you want. Yes, this is about recognizing times when passive aggressiveness come into the equation when it comes to you communicating what it is that you want. Okay. At the same time, with the nodes being in these houses, well, Saturn and Neptune have also been in your 10th house throughout the period, okay? So since July of 2023, yes, Saturn has been in Pisces for longer than that, but we're really just sticking more to this time frame associated with the nodes. So we have noticed for you that you've also been making major maturity moves when it comes to your career path, your professional lives. Gemini, you have, I think, been working diligently when it comes to, well, your long-term goals. You showing up as someone who is very much in tune with, okay, this is how I really feel about this next step. And I am going to commit myself wholeheartedly to this next chapter. This has been about making your dreams, if you will, come true when it comes to your professional lives. And this has also been about being open to a world of discovery, being open to a world of wonder and being curious. I mean, Gemini, you are a sign of curiosity. There is this way that you smile, this curious look that you give others. And so the North Node in the 10th, I think, has been about really the Neptune, should I say, Neptune we're talking about here, in your 10th has really been about your imagination, escaping into a world of fantasy, being open to the new visions, being open to these curiosities. And it's been more about flexibility, being fluid, and just going with it, right? So we've seen these major themes really play out for you for many years. For many years. I mean, Neptune has been transiting your 10th since 2011. Of course, we're going by whole sign here. But then you see Saturn has came along, and we've also noticed that you've been quite consistent and quite responsible. This has been an opportunity for you to show up in a more responsible way when it comes to your career path. I think it's been about significant endings and changes where you're able to let go. You're able to honestly, truthfully say to yourself, hand on heart, I can't be this version of myself anymore. This isn't for me. This isn't what I signed up for. I don't want this for my future. I don't want this for the long haul, really. So this is where we're noticing such maturity on your part, such success, full of setbacks and challenges, of course, but oh my goodness, the growth on your part, Gemini. So this is where we come to the nodes entering into Pisces and the nodes entering into Pisces and Virgo. So January 2025 until around about the summertime of 2026. As the South Node comes into Virgo, it will transit your 4th. So what we're going to see here is on one hand, Gemini, this is about your private self and you showing up in efficient ways. We look at this as maybe significant improvements, DIY projects, changes you want to make to your house. We think about significant property developments, ownership developments, when it comes to property, real estate possibly. But whatever the case, I mean, this is about interesting fixes and improvements and refinement when it comes to your home life, your family life, your private self. Could be really interesting for self-development, especially when we consider your emotional needs and how you might communicate your emotional needs, actually, Gemini. But we also want to think about this in terms of times when you might fixate, times when you might, and I say this with love, nag or insist on things changing, because it's all the little details with Virgo, right? It's where you can obsess about the minor details, where you make a fuss and constantly correcting people, constantly reminding people. And hey, this could also be more of an internal thing, right? Where you're having these conversations with yourself and you're like, I'm not good enough. My family don't think I'm good enough. These people over here, they're judging me and they're criticizing me. And you take that all in, right? It's like you internalize that feedback, or perhaps perceived. It's more of a perceived thing. And sure, it could literally be a way where it's communicated, right? So maybe a certain family member says something critical and you take it way deep, and then you panic. Maybe you then start to jump in and compulsively sort of manage your time, do better. I need to do better. I need to prove myself, right? Therefore, oh, and also the compulsiveness to fix family members, other people's emotions, Gemini, right? Where someone's maybe being emotional, you can come in and try to be like, oh, I need to fix, to make them feel more comfortable. But actually, there's a part of you that's uncomfortable with it. So maybe this is about getting in tune with when uncomfortable feelings come up within you. How might you then try to fix those? How might you also compartmentalize? So we come to the North Node in Pisces. So this is about you, more so going toward these themes related to, okay, I am going to surrender. I'm going to be present. I'm going to recognize that there's only so much I can control within my reality, within my space. I am going to respect the flow of life and that things gradually flow to me. And instead of worrying, freaking out, I am going to accept that things will take their time, right? It's all about just allowing with Pisces. Now, naturally, this isn't to say that, we just don't do anything. Of course, it's also about being somewhat productive and practical. There is this side to Pisces, right, that can be very much within the world, confined by time and space, is able to show up and do the productive things. But there's more of a pause. This is what we're trying to get at here. It's a pause. It's a space of, right, I'm freaking out. My nervous system is shot. I'm worrying intensely about this. How can I breathe out? This is about the spiritual. Maybe aligning, attuning yourself to some sort of spiritual practice. Maybe even a part of this is about seeing where you might overdo it or overextend a little bit, how you might stretch yourself a bit too wide. How can you bring yourself into the present? This is about the present when it comes to your professional life. This is about the present when it comes to your public self. This is also about being somewhat more, open in that, okay, to be open in a compassionate, caring way more publicly. And I think maybe a part of this is to do with, okay, times whenever there is that freak out, that, oh, I need to fix, I need to, sort of change this situation. How can you instead resist that urge a little bit and go, okay, actually, you know what? It's not for me to fix. actually. So a lot of this, I think, will be about acceptance, surrender. But hey, there is a side to Pisces that can act as the savior. So hopefully, if you also find yourself in this space where, maybe there's even some spiritual bypassing going on, and there's a bit of this avoidance, burying your head in the sand, right? Hopefully, you can bring some awareness to those times. Hopefully, Saturn has been quite supportive for you to help you go, no, actually, I'm not going to avoid that situation. I'm going to face it head on and be mature, be responsible. Okay, so thank you, Gemini. And now we're going to move on to Cancer. Okay, Cancer. So the nodes will then come into your 9th and 3rd houses. And the thing about this, Cancer, is that since July of 2023, the North node has been in your 10th and the South node has been in your 4th. So this has certainly been about the balance of your public self versus your private self. For the past 18 months, you have been making major moves, major changes to do with how you show up within your professional lives. Since July of 2023, my goodness, you have shown such courage, such bravery. Maybe you have applied for certain promotions, really leveling up within your career. Maybe it's been about making bold moves, taking daring risks, just being bold enough and brave enough to do the new thing, right? To start the new job, to start the new career path, to maybe consider also how such matters do take time, right? A big part of the 10th house as well is about the person that we're striving to become. And it's about maturity. It's about acquiring knowledge and wisdom. And it's about the hard work we put in, the dedication we show, the experiences we have, the setbacks we go through, the actions we take, and the consequences of our actions naturally. So yes, my goodness, Cancer, you have been really very much aligned with leadership roles, leadership positions, and just showing up in this leading way, right? This has been so much about your own personal path and being willing enough to take the next step forward. At the same time, with the South Node being in your 4th, this has been your opportunity to show up in diplomatic, courteous, rational ways, in somewhat cooperative ways within family, right? Thinking about, yes, healthy levels of keeping the peace, healthy levels of knowing when not to rock the boat, so to speak, right? And just to keep things harmonious, And perhaps as well, you have noticed significant changes to do with balance when it comes to your family life. But you see, this has also been about hopefully bringing awareness to any potential codependent relationships with family members. So thinking about, for example, emotional bonds, emotional entanglements, so to speak, with certain family members where you're so caught up in everybody else's drama and everybody else's gossip and she said this, he said this, it's this he said, she said stuff. And it's also about being able to hopefully remove yourself from any environments, family environments that are not actually healthy for you, that do not support your growth, and you just get caught up again into the same rhythms, the same patterns, the same cycles. So there is that. So we're seeing then these major themes happening throughout your life. Well, since July of 2023, basically, with the nodes, okay? Plus, we notice that during this same time period, Saturn and Neptune have been transiting your 9th house. So you've also, Cancer, you've been making major responsible moves, mature moves to do with, for example, higher education, publications, reporting, broadcasting. So thinking about even what you publish, what you share online, how you can show up as a bit of an authority, or how you can improve upon your level of expertise, your area of expertise. Maybe this area of expertise is largely to do with your spiritual practices. So we think about here you turning a potential spiritual practice into this profession, right? You seriously taking it on board and going, okay, well, I want to learn as much as there is to learn about this spiritual subject. Of course, this could even involve astrology. This could involve divination. But you see, this has also been about you showing up in more sensible ways to do with your worldviews. Maybe to really consider what your worldviews are and how they might influence you, influence the world around you, how you see the world. Maybe a big part of this has been about, your philosophical views, your religious views. And maybe as well, a part of this is about seeing where you've been limiting yourself, right? Maybe where you've felt some blockages to do with your worldviews. So sort of thinking about limiting beliefs about yourself, about the world. So yes, you've been interestingly going over these areas and maturing when it comes to these areas, Cancer. Maybe even a big part of this is about teaching, for example, right? Wanting to teach others, wanting to inform others. We think about you, again, growing in maturity, growing in wisdom. And naturally, this has also been about you trying to come to terms with times when you follow blindly with Neptune in the 9th. Following blindly certain philosophies, certain things that even other people preach, right? Certain spiritual gurus, for instance, certain lecturers or preachers, right? And you then coming from this place of, you know what, when I really think about this pragmatically, realistically, even to a large extent, when I tune in with this spiritually, I don't believe that. I don't actually think that. Or we can look at it the other way, where you can say to yourself, actually, I think this, I believe this. So much to do with your belief systems, your worldviews here. So this leads me on to the North Node coming into your 9th and the South Node coming into your 3rd. So with the South Node firstly coming into Virgo in your 3rd here, Cancer, this is about you hopefully being able to look at, okay, the way that you communicate can be really practical and you can simplify subjects and topics for other people in a way where, okay, it makes sense, it's understandable, you can draw from practical tips and advice. You can be quite articulate people in this way, I think, and you can use your logic and reasoning in this improved way, right? You can really show up in a way to support others, help others, be of service to others through your words, through your logic and reasoning. We could also naturally look at this as the South Node coming into your 3rd and representing a time period where, okay, time to refine your speech, to refine your delivery, to also make small tweaks, small improvements to your education. We could also look at this through a lens of improving upon your relationships with siblings, with cousins, with immediate family members, really showing up in practical ways, in ways where you're quite helpful. But you see, this is also where we want to consider trying not to get caught up in fixing, where you unknowingly try to fix siblings, fix cousins. So the way I imagine this is loads of people calling you, blowing up your phone, needing help, cancer, help me, help me, help me, right? And hey, let's face it, cancer, you are the types of people to be really compassionate and caring, especially to your family, especially to your loved ones. But actually, the South Node coming into Virgo says, maybe you don't have to go and jump into the rescue or to fix that sibling or to help that sibling. Maybe a part of this is about being able to see how such matters really impact you. See, this is also about, with the South Node in Virgo, self-care. Self-care, being health conscious, being mindful of your stress levels, mindful of worry. So hopefully, we can look at this as, sure, there is a place for helping others, being of service to others, but not in this overly compulsive way where we feel like we have to take it all on ourselves. Not at the expense of our own health is what I'm trying to get at here. And then you see, what we also notice with the South Node in Virgo is this possibility of being a bit fixated on the details. So caught up in details. Oh no, that's not correct. Oh, that's not correct. Oh, shouldn't have said it that way, or the order of that was wrong. Okay, the South Node in Virgo can show up as this, panicking maybe about, oh well, that little thing that was done wrong. And hopefully then we can look at this as, sure, healthy improvement. Maybe, yes, sure, looking at the certain standards you set, and that's all well and good, but at the same time, not getting caught up in the loop that Virgo goes through. This looping, this constantly needing to be perfect, constantly needing to improve, and then worrying excessively about that. Then we see with the North Node coming into your 9th house here, Cancer, in Pisces, well, we look at this then as, how can you welcome, how can you embrace a worldview, a belief system that's able to say, I am going to show compassion and I am going to show empathy and I'm going to be forgiving of myself, forgiving of the times whenever I maybe let myself down. I didn't have boundaries. I wasn't really living in a healthy space there. I wasn't coming from a healthy outlook there. So this is about hopefully being present enough to slow down in a way, right? To be present with, really what are those beliefs that are coming through and how can you shift and move them in a way where it's a lot more freeing, it's kinder. This is a very cleansing time with the North Node in Pisces. But it's also, I think, about maybe coming across as a teacher, as a guide, as someone who publishes, as someone who broadcasts, and you come across as being caring, patient, hopefully being somewhat mindful that everybody has their own views and their own ways of viewing the world, and also hopefully we can look at it as you really attuning to your own moral compass, your own sense of spiritual guidance, following your beliefs in this regard. hopefully beliefs that are more supportive and aren't as punishing. But also, hopefully, you don't lean too much towards the other way either, where it's about being this savior, being the martyr, being the one who has to rescue everybody. And so this is where you can also lean a little bit more towards that discernment with Virgo, the health conscious side of Virgo. We think about those thoughts of self-care. And yeah, basically, I think a big part of this is trying not to get caught up in the extremes either way, Cancer. Thank you, Cancer. And now on to Leo. Okay, so Leo, let's move on to you. The nodes will come into your 8th and 2nd houses. What I want to do first is I want to explore the North Node and the South Node in Aries and Libra since July of 2023. So, since July of 2023, Leo, my goodness, you have been showing up in very assertive ways when it comes to your publications, how you wish to promote yourself, how you wish to share, maybe on social media, online, what you broadcast really to the world. You have been taking action, showing bravery when it comes to your worldviews, even just exploring the abstract, being quite bold and courageous about what you see, what you believe to be true, right? A lot of this is about your truth in many ways and your beliefs, your philosophical views, your religious views. Morality has been a big theme. Really aligning with your morals, aligning with your ethics, speaking openly in this very brave way about such matters. And of course, with Chiron, Chiron has been hanging out in Aries for a good few years. So there have been themes to do with maybe worldview rejections, publication rejections, something here to do with questioning your beliefs a little bit, wondering to yourself, should I continue this? Should I go on with this? Self-doubt maybe creeping in a bit, or just becoming really quite enraged or angry about certain morals and ethics out there in the world. Thinking to yourself, how could that be? How could that be law? How could that be a written rule? I just don't understand that, right? And at the same time, it could also be that something new has been ushered in to do with maybe university or higher education, advanced training programs, things like that, Leo. At the same time, with the South Node being in your 3rd house since July of 2023, we have noticed, yes, on one hand, you showing up in quite diplomatic, fair ways within conversations, really maybe listening to feedback, gathering information from other people in a way where, okay, there is good listening there. There is that diplomacy, collaborating, cooperating with others. But you see, on the other hand, this could also be a case of you maybe observing times whenever you don't speak up, or times whenever you hesitate, or times whenever you just agree for the sake of agreeing, and sure, there's a place for that. I think there is a place for that in life, with agreeing or with just going along with the program, because you don't want to disrupt the harmony, right? We want to think about this naturally within the context of your life and certain situations, but it's still a case of the South Node in Libra pointing towards times whenever you do that to such a point where you just want to explode, because you think to yourself, oh, well, I didn't really defend myself there. I didn't stay true to my word there. So, Leo, these themes have been coming up. Maybe even a part of this is recognizing times when you play the peacekeeper, when it comes to sibling relationships or cousin relationships, or just, communicating in this peacekeeper type of way. And then you're sitting there thinking, why am I being the mediator all the time? Why can't these two friends or these two people just talk about it directly? Why do I have to get involved? Maybe this kind of drama or gossip or unnecessary confusion has shown up for you. So this is then where we want to think about, whilst all of this stuff has been happening since July of 2023, Saturn and Neptune have also been transiting your 8th Leo. So a lot has been going on for you psychologically, beneath the surface. My goodness, there is so much that you don't share. There's so much that's just boiling beneath the surface because you think, it's a lot, It's heavy. It may feel burdensome. It may feel like there's just a lot to carry, right? We could even look at this through a lens of, sure, Leo, above the surface with you, you can come across as engaging, as quite positive, this sunny disposition, right? Generous. My goodness, the warmth of a Leo is just magnetic and beautiful. But you see, behind the scenes, if you will, and I know it's not the 12th, but there's still an element here of what's hidden. But I suppose Pisces, even within itself, is about behind the scenes activity. Still, behind the scenes, underneath, there's a lot that's kept in. There's a lot that's kept secret. There's maybe pain, suffering. There may be things that are weighing on your heart, things that you're unsure of, maybe about trust. Maybe, a big part of this too is about feeling low on energy, drained, depressive episodes, emotional states where it just feels like, oh my goodness, am I ever going to make it through this? Am I ever going to get out of this situation? Even with Neptune, Neptune transiting this 8th house for you as well, it sort of says, I need to disguise myself. I need to take cover. I need to make myself invisible for a while because, whoa, right? It's just a lot of emotion. This is what I'm getting. It's the intensity of emotion. It's the overwhelming attitudes and feelings associated with emotion. But you see, what I'm also getting from this is how, hopefully for many of you Leos, you've been able to channel those emotions. Naturally, with the 8th house, yes, it can show up as repressed emotions. Naturally as well, there's also a place for that. Often we repress or suppress emotion as a way to keep ourselves safe, as a way to make it through a challenging situation. Just as an example, of course. But I think what I'm getting from this is bottling things up to such an extent where you may feel like you're about to explode. So going back to what I was saying, hopefully you've been able to channel these emotions, as conflicting as they may be. And we could also perhaps see this as channeling emotion through creativity, through art, through photography, media, some healthy forms of escapism. We could also look at this as the moves you've been making to do with things like divination or psychology, getting to know yourself on a deeper level. Maybe as well, a part of this is healthy limits, healthy boundaries, right? That space, that separation between you and other people, and being able to say, actually, I am gonna step behind the scenes and move away from this area that's just not very healthy for me. It's too negative for me. No, I can't do that. So yeah, I'm getting from this the amount of maturity on your part that's happened here. And hey, you know what? Taking responsibility, so to speak, when it comes to your health, right? Your psychological health, your mental health. So if it is, for instance, that you feel a bit like, oh, wow, okay, this is heavy, you actually being able to reach out or being able to say, oh no, actually, I need help. I need a bit of help here. So yes, indeed, a lot to do with responsibility, showing up for yourself, and making those significant changes with relation to your psyche, with relation to even, I would say, intimacy, vulnerability. Okay, then this is where we get to the South Node and the North Node. So as the South Node goes into to Virgo, the North Node goes into Pisces. So this, as a reminder, will be from January of 2025 up until the summertime of 2026. Right. With the South Node coming into Virgo in your second house, Leo, a big part of this transit will be about what you value, your personal values. And I see this as you valuing your ability to think critically. You value your ability to be hygienic, to be helpful, to be healthy. This, I think, will be your opportunity to be really health conscious, to be mindful of, okay, my values. How can I make my values a priority in my life? How can I show up for the things I value in a way where I'm being practical? And also, this is about your skills and your talents often involving something that's quite efficient, right? Maybe you find this more efficient way of being productive when it comes to a skill or talent you possess. Maybe this is about you being quite orderly and productive about your finances, about your resources, your possessions, your belongings, all these things, Leo. However, we do want to be somewhat mindful of jumping into fix and mend and change, improve things in this really, fixated, hyper fixated way where actually you're doing yourself more harm than good. Actually, you're picking yourself apart. You're being really very hard on your body or about your self-worth. There could be some self-esteem issues here where you need to be perfect. I need to be perfect. I need to be perfect. I need to change this. So it just becomes this never-ending loop. So hopefully we can look to the North Node in Pisces a little bit here and see this as, okay, you know what? Over the past couple of years, I've really been looking at my psychological blockages and what limits me psychologically. I've been facing my shadow. I've been experiencing transformations and endings to do with my psychology. I've made so much progress, in fact. So I am also going to just remember that progress. I'm going to remember the healthy limitations I put in place. And if I do find myself maybe acting in this compulsive way, I can be present with myself, right? It's this pause. It's an ability to pause, to bring awareness to the fixing, to the freak out, the panic. I need to do better. I need to improve upon myself. It's a breathing out energy with the North Node in Pisces. It's a type of presence. It's to be present, to be in the now, to live in the now, to come from a place of acceptance, to accept the things that one cannot control, that one cannot actually fix. And that actually, maybe sometimes whenever we do try to fix, we do end up just making the thing worse. It's sort of like, if you have I know for me, right? I'm just going to speak from my own experience. If I see that my nail is chipped and I just want to chip at it with my own nail, it just makes it worse when all I can just do is get a nail file and file it a little bit, right? It's that sort of, you have a scab and you just keep picking at it, and then it's worse, the healing process is longer then. So how can you be present with yourself enough if, for example, you find yourself in the depths of intensity and there's all of this psychological stuff going on. How can you pause? How can you be kind to yourself? Breathe out. And hopefully at the same time, you won't lean too far towards, being this savior or this martyr or being in this victim role either, with the North Node being in Pisces. Hopefully you can also equally look more at, okay, well, that is not my responsibility. That is not up for me to get involved. Actually, I need to value myself. Thank you, Leo. And now on to Virgo. Okay, Virgo. Well, what do we have here, Virgo? The South Node will enter your sign and the North Node will enter the sign opposite you, Pisces. What we're going to do first is we're going to explore the nodes in your second and eighth houses since July of 2023. With the North Node being in Aries in your eighth house since July of 2023, you have been so bold, so brave, so daring when it comes to unraveling and diving into your subconscious programmings, your subconscious conditionings. You really showing up for yourself, doing the inner work, doing the shadow work, taking really this deeper look at why you do the things you do. What makes you upset? What makes you angry? What makes you jump into action? What makes you initiate things? And how might you assert yourself? Really asserting yourself in a way where, okay, I'm going to advocate for myself. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. Naturally, yes, Chiron has been in Aries for a good while. And I want to bring up Chiron, especially for you, Virgo, because this psychological stuff to do with the eighth house is already challenging enough. And so Chiron here, it's almost like you've been addressing a deep wound, maybe tied to your asexuality, maybe a deep wound tied to intimacy, trust, emotional bonding. Perhaps such matters and themes are related to even, I'm going to just spell it out just because of demonetization, but violence, right? Yeah. So, yeah, maybe I can't just say it, but yeah, just violence, violence. We think about attacks, things like that. So it's safe to say that such a time period came with its challenges. And we also notice too that this is about you showing up in really independent, courageous ways when it comes to shared resources, shared finances, thinking even about how you share with your significant other, how you combine resources and materials there. And maybe even it's that your significant other, they've been really showing up as a leader since July of 2023 when it comes to their money, when it comes to their resources and their spending, etc. Which, interesting developments. But again, I think mainly, this is about you doing the inner work and you even showing up as a bit of a pioneer or showing up as a leader when it comes to maybe divination, the occult, could also be managing other people's finances, other people's money in some way, shape, or form. And simultaneously, the South Node has been in your second house. So this has also been about you bringing things into more of a healthier balance when it comes to your personal resources, when it comes to your personal finances. Has this been quite challenging to do though? Yes, right? I mean, perhaps it's been quite the balancing act, so to speak, with the South Node in your second house. Maybe also a part of this is about drawing from your gifts and your skills to do with diplomacy, to do with collaborating with others, cooperating with others, being mindful of other people's thoughts and their feedback, taking other people's feedback on board when it comes to your personal values. However, this is also about recognizing times when you take on the feedback from others too much. And in some way, shape, or form, this brings us back to the North Node in Aries, in that you're able to reflect and you're able to go, actually, no, that person's opinion of me, that person's view, it doesn't align with what I think of myself. And yeah, okay, that person is entitled to think what they think, but it doesn't have to impact me. It doesn't have to get to me to such a point where I adjust myself, I change myself, I mold myself into their version of what they want me to be. So yeah, this is so much about being able to ease up on times when you get so caught up in other people's views. It's like, wow, you really care about what that person has to say about you, what they think about you. No, that's not self-worth, Virgo. So yes, this has been major for self-worth upgrades, self-esteem upgrades, Virgo. At the same time, whilst all of this nodal stuff has been happening since July of 2023, well, Saturn and Neptune have also been transiting your seventh. So here we go. Very much about relationships, very much about partnerships, Virgo. My goodness, this is about the major maturity, the taking responsibility, especially for your own delusions within relationships and partnerships. And also to be able to be quite firm about your own boundaries when it comes to other people, right? I think even about how, what can perhaps happen when it comes to you, Virgo, is that people can often mistaken your kindness for weakness, right? They can maybe mistaken your helpfulness and your support and your service, as a way to take advantage, right? And so I think Saturn in your seventh has been great for you, because it's like you think you can take advantage of me? No. And so this has been great for you being able to say, these are my boundaries, these are my limitations. I'm very firm about this. Of course, coming across as compassionate and coming across as, somewhat kind in the process. Hey, having said that, some people, kindness doesn't really work, and you just have to give them that real firm toughness too. And yeah, people may look at it too as, you're being mean, you're being cruel for doing that. And you're like, no, I'm really not. It's actually you that's trying to impose upon me, and you just don't like that I'm setting boundaries with you. Yeah, Virgo, just incredible. And we also notice that perhaps, you've been quite committed to certain significant other relationships, right? So the relationship you have with your significant other, or even relationships that you have with a business partner. We think about collaborations, one-to-one partnerships here. My word, you have truly been showing up in committed, structured ways, but also in ways where you're able to draw from spiritual guidance, right? And to show emotional maturity. Saturn has been incredible for emotional wisdom, spiritual wisdom, intuition upgrades, following through and aligning with your intuition to a large extent. So all of these themes have been very much a part of your story. I think when we think about the nodes being in Aries and Libra since July of 2023, Virgo. Maybe even a big part of this is about greater structure to do with clients and customers, and, coming from this place of really wanting to show up in this professional way for your clients, to show up in this supportive way, right? It's like, how can I support my clients emotionally, coming from a place of care, really, coming from a place of empathy. Okay, this then leads me on to the South Node and the North Node. So the South Node comes into your sign, Virgo, from January of 2025 up until summer of 2026. And then the North Node will be in the sign opposite you in Pisces. Okay, well, one, I really see this as interesting developments and improvements and changes to do with your sense of self, Virgo. This is about really nourishing yourself, supporting yourself. This is about small improvements, leveling up. This is like a glow up, perhaps, the glow up, the level up where you're able to come from a place of, I am doing the work, I'm being efficient, I'm being productive, I'm managing my stress levels, I'm being health conscious, I'm looking at time management a lot better here. I'm looking at my scheduling and my organizational skills here, my orderly, think about it. Your ability to create order out of chaos is just incredible, Virgo. So we're going to see these themes. We're going to see this. However, we also want to think about taking things to the extreme or coming from this place of being panicky, being overly worried, overly fixated about perfection. Like, oh my gosh, I'm really picking myself apart. I'm feeling like I need to be perfect whenever I meet this person. I'm getting myself into a frenzy about this new chapter. We see with the South Node in the first, right? The first house is so much about new beginnings, new chapters. So we could see significant new chapters to do with your life path, your work, your services. Could be, interesting new relationship chapters, things like that too. Just whatever changes your identity, basically, right? But as you're going through these new chapters, as you're experiencing them, maybe there will be a part of you that will panic, right? There will be a part of you that will kind of get uppity about it, or you'll freak out about it and go, no, I don't know if I deserve this. I'm not really sure. It's just this really, like, can I do this? There can be self-doubt when it comes to you, Virgo. But hey, come on. I believe in you, Virgo. Let's also think of it as the North Node coming into your 7th, and the North Node in Pisces opposite you says, listen to your inner voice. Listen to it. Let it sink in. Breathe out, Virgo. Allow for some flow and to not have everything figured out all the time. Allow for things to develop and to unfold in this really organic, beautiful way. And, even if it is that, right, you feel your nerves just going crazy, right? Your stress levels are like, it's like, okay, how can you still sit in that without actually acting on it? Instead of jumping in to sort of compulsively mend and fix and push to change things, how can you just hold space for, this is enough? This is it. I don't have to jump in. I don't have to worry about that. Maybe, okay, sure, you'll worry anyway. But it's still about being able to step back from the chaos, to step back for just a moment, to be present with yourself. This is so much about being health conscious. This is about being mindful of your emotions and really what comes up within you whenever other people are doing things outside of you. How do you react? What really comes up within the body? And then we can also naturally look at this as the North Node in Pisces representing some interesting developments within your relationships, right? We think about compassion from other people, being involved within these, one-to-one partnerships where it's about forgiveness. It's you feeling this sense of love from the other. And hopefully as well, it's a romantic time. It's sweet. There's moments of sweetness and kindness and tenderness. Plus, hopefully, it's not about showing up in this, oh, I need to save this other person. I need to make sure that I rescue them and I'm the one who rescues them, right? It's hopefully about remembering those healthy boundaries you've already put in place, respecting those, continuing to respect those as you embark on this new journey. Thank you so much, Virgo. And now on to Libra. Okay, Libra. So moving on to you. Well, Libra, what do we see here? The nodes will come into your 6th and 12th houses, but what I want to do is I want to think about where the nodes have been since July of 2023 for you, Libra. And the South node has been in your sign, whilst the North node has been in the sign opposite you over in Aries. Right. Since July of 2023, Libra, you have been very much standing up for yourself, defending yourself within relationships. This is about protecting yourself, defending yourself against others, if or when you need to, of course. But maybe even a strong part of this is just about advocating for yourself, right? It's being able to assert yourself in a more direct way. Yes, Libra, you're also a cardinal sign, just like Aries. So you're very much a leader. You're very much a go-getter, a doer. It's just that often you can do that in a pretty diplomatic way, in a roundabout way. Sometimes, though, naturally, this can come across as passive aggressive. And so maybe a part of the South Node in your sign has supported you or helped you recognize, bring awareness to any passive aggressive tendencies. But then also, we could look at this as the silent treatment stuff that can tend to happen with you. So again, in a similar fashion, the South Node being in your sign maybe has ushered in new changes, new chapters to do with the silent treatment side of things. And so to instead hopefully be a bit more direct, to be a bit more forward facing, right? To be forward with people and just to sort of say it like it is if or when you need to. Naturally, this is also about still coming across as somewhat thoughtful and considerate toward other people. There's a fine balance here, and maybe you know all too well about that balance, Libra. And don't get me wrong, when it really comes down to it, if you need to, you will be very firm about, okay, this does not feel good. I've had enough. And so you can go to that point, right? You can get to that point where it is very much about justice. So we do see these themes, right? It's all of these themes, basically, Libra, that have been happening, that have been going on within your life since July of 2023 quite strongly. And we also notice new chapters in some way, shape, or form, because the first house is so much about new chapters, new beginnings. So maybe this has literally been the new chapter within a relationship cycle, within a relationship pattern. Maybe a part of it is bringing awareness to your relationships and your partnerships in some way, shape, or form. And you recognizing, oh, okay, well, this doesn't really seem balanced. This doesn't seem fair. Rationally speaking, I'm not really happy with this. And so maybe a part of it too is about coming to this point of, sure, I'm going to be giving, I'm going to be thoughtful towards others, but I also have to choose myself at some point. So, for example, if it is that you feel like you've just been, trying the same thing over and over, you're not getting anywhere with a certain partner, with a certain friend, with a certain sibling, or even your child. Of course, your child could be an adult, your son, your daughter, right? But if this has been the case, maybe it's about being able to say, hold on, why am I continuously going through this same pattern, this same cycle with this individual? And what can I do to change that? What can I do to get myself out of the cycle, out of the pattern? Oh, okay, I need to draw a little bit from my own assertiveness, from my own needs, from my own wants, my own independence. I have to choose myself. These things going on, okay. So you've really been showing up, I think, when it comes to being brave, being bold, being daring and courageous within your relationships, Libra. Amazing. And as this has been going on, Saturn and Neptune have been transiting your 6th house. Okay, so what we have also noticed for you, Libra, is you addressing health concerns, potential health issues during this time period. You coming up against blockages, limitations. We think about, for example, you falling sick quite often, or you getting really stressful, becoming quite stressed out about everyday stuff, or you noticing that things are really getting to you because things just continue to pile up and up and up. And without any release, without any rest, it's too much. This is about the workload, things feeling burdensome, things just feeling overwhelming on a practical level, on a mundane level. And so, hopefully, then what we can also recognize for you, Libra, is you being able to, at times, when you can, naturally switch off, to rest, to replenish, to think about your energy levels here, to think about recharging, to think about how you can give to yourself. And self-care is a major theme to do with the sixth house as well. But there's still something here about getting caught up in this cycle, when will this ever end? And maybe even a part of this is tied to potential addictive tendencies related to, it could be your health, it could be being productive, workaholic stuff here maybe, productivity overload. So hopefully with Saturn in some way, shape, or form, Saturn has shown up as, okay, I get that there is you being dedicated and committed to a plan, but also how can you allow for rest and recovery to be a part of that? How can you make time for self-care? And maybe it feels at times physically, literally impossible to do that. But this is what Saturn, I feel, is really trying to usher in and trying to teach you. It's how to be responsible when it comes to your habits, your routines, scheduling, the order of things, what you prioritize, task management, your stress levels, your productivity levels, all of it, So hopefully we can look at this as you refining things, really trying to come at things from a place of, okay, do I really feel like I have the fuel today? Is this really something that I need to do now? Can I maybe just leave this until tomorrow, possibly? So a lot of this stuff, I think, has been happening, especially, in the background in a way. Maybe, a big part of this is people often don't see how much you struggle or how much you're trying to do and how much you're trying to take on when it comes to work in your services. So this is where we get to a very interesting shift, because as the South Node comes into your 12th house in Virgo, the North Node will come into Pisces. So this will be from around about January of 2025 up until the summer of 2026. Therefore, let's think about the South Node in Virgo in your 12th. Pencil the rest in. Make it a priority. This is what I'm getting. Make rest a priority for yourself. Make time for those moments of retreating, of solitude, and also try to do or create your task management in such a way where there is rest and recovery involved in it. And it's not you just continuously being swept up in the woes and the worries and the suffering and the pain and, what everybody else is needing from you out there in the world. How can you come from a place of greater order behind the scenes, greater order and efficiency behind the scenes? How can you ease up on this fixing attitude? Remember, with Virgo in the 12th, a lot of this stuff is unconscious, right? it's that unconscious need, that urge to kind of jump in and help and save everybody else. But actually, how can you create more of this pause, more of this awareness to go, hold on a second. Am I acting from this in a conscious way? Have I considered my needs, how I'm feeling here? Or am I just purely going off adrenaline? Or is my nervous system all over the place here? Is this just something that's reoccurring? Is it because I'm used to this? So hopefully we can look at this as you becoming somewhat more health conscious, health aware behind the scenes. And maybe a part of this too, Libra, is recognizing, you know what, I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to explain myself. My health is number one here. It's this whole saying, I think, with Virgo, health is wealth. If you don't have your health, what else do you have? Right? Health is just, it's such an important, vital area of our lives that we need to put first. And then at the same time, with the North Node coming into your sixth house, sure, okay, we can also look at this as this greater flow, this greater presence when it comes to your everyday routines and your habits and the practical stuff. It's really an interesting conversation here because Virgo is in the 12th, whilst Pisces is in the 6th. And so it's this, to me, what I'm feeling is this flow, this ability to flow in and out of the behind the scenes stuff and the mundane everyday stuff, to flow in and out of that which is physical and doing and practical, but that which is more spiritual and more about connecting with source and with divinity and prayer, and to get more sleep and to rest when you need to. Yes, this is about holding space for both. Okay, this is about a balance naturally with the nodes. But then again, maybe even a small part of this too, especially with the North Node coming into the sixth, is hopefully you bringing awareness to any attitudes of getting swept away by co-worker relationships, by colleagues, by work, by services, that you offer. When might you get swept away in such a in this helpless way, actually, right? In this way where it's like, oh, I physically can't, I have to help these people. I need to be there. And, it's almost like you're becoming consumed by other people's suffering, or by just feeling this need to help people. So again, this could be where you create some more space for that discernment behind the scenes. And then equally, behind the scenes, this is about maybe being quite studious and thinking about, your gift of making the spiritual quite practical for people, right? There are these gifts that you possess, Libra, where you can really help those that you are of service to, or help those that you work for or work with. And it's all about, applying what you've, spiritually done, or what you've spiritually looked at within yourself, and then bringing those lessons and sharing your wisdom to others. We do see this as, some of your gifts. Again, we just want to think about the extremes here with the nodes. We want to think about trying to come from a place of healthier equilibrium. And of this, Libra. You are the sign of balance. So this is just another, I suppose, challenge, but also I gotta admit, I kind of like the South Node being in your 12th in a way, because it's going to help you bring more awareness to that unconscious part of you that feels that urgency, that the compulsion, the fixation of fixing, mending, correcting, making a fuss of things. Well, maybe what you want to do is just be present enough with yourself and say, you know what? Is this going to bring me inner peace? Is this just going to disrupt me? unnecessarily, where I'm going to get into a frenzy and then I'm going to get unwell and I'm going to be run down. Okay, I see that. Let me just let go of that. Thank you, Libra. And now on to Scorpio. Moving on to Scorpio then. So Scorpio, the nodes, of course, will be moving into your 11th and 5th houses. But what we're going to do is we're going to explore the North Node and the South Node in your 6th and 12th houses since July of 2023. Right, let's dive in. Well, what we're noticing for you since July of 2023, Scorpio, is a lot of leadership developments and changes to do with your work, your services, you showing up as a bit of a trailblazer, as a pioneer, as a type of warrior, so to speak. You really defending your position, standing up for yourself. So, for instance, I mean, if it is that any coworker relationships have been a problem for you, if you've been challenged by coworker relationships, by colleague relationships, by employers, this has been about you showing that bravery and just going, hold on a second. No, you're not going to speak to me like that. No, we're not going to get into this. Actually, I am standing up for myself. And you also stepping up to the challenge when it comes to meeting certain job, work related goals as well, right? And being even very much on the ball. Scorpio, on the ball when it comes to your daily routines, your daily habits, scheduling, the order of things. Yes, maybe even a part of this too, Scorpio, is making your health a major priority in your life, right? It's this whole thing that I just talked about with Libra. Health is wealth, and you being very assertive about that. So, for instance, if it is that some employer wants you to work an extra shift, you go, no, I'm off. I'm off. I'm not doing it. So, yes, very much staying true to yourself and what you want, basically, here, Scorpio. At the same time, what we've also been seeing for you is that behind the scenes, there's been a lot going on, for you when it comes to relationships, partnerships. On one hand, yes, this could be where people don't notice maybe any imbalances within your relationships, maybe any concerns or issues that have been happening behind the scenes. So whenever you're out of the public eye and maybe it's just you and your significant other, maybe it's you and a business partner, yeah, people may not see potential dramas or messes or imbalances there. Naturally, however, we could also look at this as you making some healthy adjustments within relationships and partnerships, right? So coming at things from a more diplomatic way, even just looking at this on a more subconscious level, right? Because perhaps people don't see, or maybe you don't even see fully either, the part of you that really comes from a place of, okay, let's be a team, try to come up with solution. If there is a problem, if there is an issue, if there is a disagreement, we want to think about healthy conflict resolution. So I think underneath, these are the changes we've really been seeing. It's like your ability to see both sides or all sides, your ability to even be somewhat more patient with other people, to be kind of mindful of other people's opinions and views and their feedback, and naturally seeing which feedback really aligns with you and what doesn't. Maybe even this is about you tapping into your hidden gifts, your hidden talents, to do with collaboration, to do with partnership, relating to other people, joining together with other people, thinking about that equal exchange, that back and forth, right? Even the sharing, right? Sharing space with other people here, Scorpio. So, yes, I think we have seen interesting developments happen when it comes to these areas. But also, I think this has been an opportunity for you to face any fears you have to do with commitment, to do with relationships, partnerships. This could also be about addressing any unconscious drives and motivations with relation to partnerships and relationships. thinking about any times when you might push people away, for example, and then you don't realize that that's what you're doing. Maybe even a part of this is about, oh, I don't really trust them. I don't want them to get too close to me. Of course, there's nuance to this and really context does matter, but I just can't help but think that these are some themes that have really came up for you since July of 2023. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to think about how Saturn and Neptune have also been transiting your fifth house throughout this period. So as the nodes have been in your sixth and 12th houses, Saturn and Neptune being in the fifth these planets have pointed towards the growth on your behalf, Scorpio, when it comes to, for example, romantic relationships, lovers. We think about even you committing romantically, you also showing up in this responsible way, this accountable way within romantic relationships, being able to own your stuff, right? To own your emotions, to regulate your emotions, to honestly see, how aligned you are with somebody else, maybe spiritually. This has also been about responsibility when it comes to children, for example. This could also be about making sensible, responsible moves when it comes to art, your creativity, and just the amount of love that you've been pouring into your creativity and your art and your hobbies over these years. To think even about how much you've really opened your mind to this more fantasy world, or to tap into your imagination in this really interesting way with relation to hobbies, to think about healthy forms of escapism when it comes to your hobbies as well, solitude here, just the worlds that you've been opened up to basically here, Scorpio, over the past number of years. And the dreams, the dreams that you've longed for, and making maybe your dreams come true, for example, right? So if there is some kind of creative project that you really dreamed of doing, it's almost like Saturn coming into the fifth house has really solidified things for you, which is really incredible. Just a lot of creative flow, really beautiful here, Scorpio. Right, this then is what leads me on to the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo from January 2025 up until the summer of 2026. So we'll begin with the South Node first. The South Node will come into your 11th house in Virgo and will usher in then certain improvements or changes or tweaks that you want to make when it comes to maybe groups or clubs, communities that either you want to join or be a part of, or that you want to actually start, that you maybe want to be the organizer, for example, the host. We could also look at this as you maybe creating more order in your life, more efficiency in your life, because you think to yourself, right, okay, well, I want to work towards my hopes and wishes for the future. I want to think about how I can create greater order in my life so that things are more consistent, so that things operate a lot better, things function a lot better. Maybe even a part of the South Node in Virgo could be you drawing from your gifts of finding a niche, really finding a niche that works for you. Or this could even be about how you can show up as being very helpful and supportive, to be of service in some way, shape, or form within a group, within a community, within an organization or an institution. But you see, we could also look at this as, well, the South Node indicating this urgency, these feelings of urgency to do with fixing unnecessarily, making a fuss, worrying about the group, worrying about that friend, feeling like you need to fix that situation for that friend, becoming swept up in other people's problems, getting yourself into this tizzy because it's like, I'm so concerned about perfection here, and it needs to be perfect. It needs to be to this standard. And so, yeah, there can be this compulsiveness here, right? Also, we can look at it as you maybe feeling like you need to solve other people's problems, friendship problems, problems for the group. So, the North Node in the fifth house in Pisces welcomes this greater sense of peace, inner calm, being able to breathe out, being able to come from a place of presence, to be present with yourself, right? To be present when it comes to, okay, you know what? This is something that I enjoy. This is something that I really love. All of that messy stuff may be happening with groups of people out there, with the masses, thinking even about uh, the sort of collective views with the 11th house, right? So all of that stuff happening out there, actually, I need to just plug in my earphones and I need to just focus on myself right now. This isn't to say being ignorant to things. It's not to say, okay, you can't make a difference, things like that. Of course, even with the notes, it is about balance. But I'm just more getting at, I'm pointing towards the overextension, the compulsive helping, the compulsive being of service at the expense of your health, right? So it's being able to create some distance there, to be able to come from a place of, okay, you know what? I really need to focus on the things that bring me peace. And also, we can look at this as showing up as being present when it comes to your creativity. This, I feel, is going to be massive for you when it comes to your creative projects. For example, just you tapping into your imagination. This is so much about wonder, curiosity, fascination, Scorpio. So much to do with art and getting lost in art, and it's so poetic, and it's beautiful. Just making more time for, well, you. It's like time off. Time off, Scorpio. Maybe this is something you're really craving, even though I'm going to say this, even though, yes, Saturn and Neptune will come into your sixth house and there will be major sort of work related moves, things like that, that really start to happen, but it's still creating space for that presence, right? To show up in this really present way where you're not so focused on the future and you're not so focused on the past. And you're just like, okay, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be involved in my art and my creativity. This is what makes me feel good. Thank you so much, Scorpio. And now on to Sagittarius. Okay, so Sagittarius, moving on to you. What do the nodes, changing signs, have in store? Well, what I want to do first is I want to explore the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra since July of 2023. That's how we're going to begin this, and then we kind of build upon it, right? So the North Node has been in your fifth house, and the South Node has been in your 11th. Therefore, since July of 2023, Sagittarius, major themes here, major changes here to do with the things that make your heart sing, right? This is about your heart's desire. This is about what makes you feel good, your interests, your passions, your hobbies. Maybe also we've seen you be a bit of a leader, be a bit of a trailblazer when it comes to your creativity, your hobbies, your forms of recreation as well. Hey, this could be about making really the use of your time. So, time off that you have, it's like you want to spend it being adventurous. You want to spend it doing something, going after your goals. Maybe this is about sports. Maybe this is about being really active. This is about exercise. But this could also be about fun and play and entertainment, enjoying yourself. And if you have children, as if you've got if you're a Sagittarius basically and you have children, maybe this is about making time for your children or doing fun events with them or being really active with them, going on adventures, the outdoors. But in general, this is about that activity with Aries. Maybe this has even been about setting yourself significant goals when it comes to an interest or a hobby of yours, Sagittarius. And maybe too, a big part of this is actively wanting more time off so that you can have fun, so that you can enjoy yourself and let your hair down. Hey, maybe for some of you, it's been a bit more partying, right? It's been more time of leisure, right? Leisure activities with the North Node in the 5th. And with the South Node also being in Libra in the 11th, we've also noticed for you, Sagittarius, coming from a place of greater diplomacy and tact and rationale, really being rational when it comes to groups and friendships, teams, clubs, maybe you being a bit of a mediator when it comes to groups and clubs, you being the host, you being the go-between. But you see, this is also about times whenever you, in a perhaps subconscious way, act as the peacekeeper, act as the person who needs to solve the dramas and the upsets of other people. And sure, don't get me wrong, like I've sort of been suggesting throughout this video, there's a place for these things. There is a place to be a bit of a peacekeeper or a mediator. So in your case, to be this way when it comes to groups, when it comes to teams you're a part of, friendship groups, things like that. But it's also about how you might do that to such an extent where you're not actually thinking about what you want. Okay, so we want to think about bringing it back to the North Node in Aries. So the North Node in Aries has also been about you standing up for yourself in some way, shape, or form. You being able to say, hey, all this drama, all this chaos that's happening amongst these people, I don't want to have to get involved in that so much. I need to think about, okay, well, what am I doing tomorrow? Okay, well, I've set that aside. I'm going to do that. And we also maybe look at this as the 11th house representing certain institutions, organizations that you're a part of. So this could show up as, this work-related situation, a company, a firm that you're a part of. So with the South Node being in Libra, maybe a part of it is about maybe standing up for what is fair, standing up for justice, for maybe people's human rights, things like that, just advocating for other people. So we've maybe seen these developments for you. Maybe this is even about getting people to sign petitions or starting a charity or starting some kind of cause or a movement, for example. But still, it's also about recognizing the ways in which you might lean too much towards, okay, well, I'm trying to please everybody. I need to make sure that everybody's happy, that everybody is okay. And then it's this whole realization of you can't make everybody happy. You physically can't do it. And I get it, Sagittarius, you're this sign that's very much about coming from this place of being positive, and you can come across as really smiley and just wanting to have a good time, and you want to cheer people up. I think, Sagittarius, you can be great when it comes to, when people are feeling low or down. You're there with your jokes, you're there with your generosity, really, right? And that can be so amazing in so many ways. But I still can't help but think that the North Node in your 5th has ushered in more of this attitude of, okay, I need to think about myself here, my independence, my individuality. Okay, whilst all of this has been happening, then Saturn and Neptune have been in your 4th. So a lot has been going on within your private life, within your home life, your family life. We have noticed here, Sagittarius, just the amount of emotion that has come up, the amount of secrets that have come out, the things that you've had to really face, the hard truths that you've had to face about yourself, about your emotional needs, about emotional blockages, about family members. We've also noticed, possible delusionments, deception to do with family, and also maybe some lack of boundaries and lack of healthy limitations when it comes to family relationships. Maybe becoming emotionally enmeshed, right? Sort of merging too much with certain family issues and your emotions just being caught up in all of that, right? It's you absorbing other people's emotions heavily. But you see, maybe with Saturn here, Saturn has supported you and helped you kind of go, hold on a second. This is about my maturity. This is about me taking responsibility for my own emotions, and that actually I can't take responsibility for other people's emotions. I just can't do it. You think about that in combination with that South Node energy that I just talked about, right? So you coming to these realizations strongly where you're like, no, I can't. I have to set this limit. I have to set this healthy boundary for myself, because if I don't, I am going to get swept away in the chaos, in the drama, and I don't want that for my life. And then a part of it too, I think, is about especially with Pisces in the fourth, this is about inner peace. This is about a home space, a family space where there is greater calm and stillness and peace naturally. Sure, when it comes to the realities of things, life isn't always peaceful. Life isn't always, about being serene and calm, and there's never any issues. And it's also not about just avoiding any issues when they arise. But what I'm trying to get at here is knowing the difference between, bringing awareness to when you maybe are there to support, to help other people, but times whenever you're just acting purely from this unconscious state, purely out of habit, purely out of a pattern, out of this cycle that you're just so used to. And maybe that cycle is so ingrained in your childhood, right? Because this is the fourth house, it's about our conditioning, right? So this then leads me onto the South Node coming into your 10th and the North Node coming into your 4th. So this will be from January of 2025 until summer of 2026. Let's begin with the South Node in Virgo. Right, great. This is where we're going to see really interesting developments happen for you when it comes to, for example, your professional lives. Coming from this place of, polishing things up, cleaning up your act, coming from this place of, you know what, I've got this. Things are pretty together. Things are pretty orderly here. There is a routine. I'm quite organized here when it comes to my career path. I'm more focused in on what I can do practically. I can show up in these practical, helpful ways. This is also about creating greater efficiency, time management, being quite productive, being quite orderly when it comes to your long-term goals. And, we could also look at this as just showing up publicly, right? Of course, with many Sagittarians out there, maybe you're retired, maybe you're no longer working, right? So showing up publicly in this quite helpful way, and you come across as quite witty and as quite practical minded, as quite health conscious, maybe sharing practical tips and advice with other people. Brilliant. However, we also want to be mindful here of stepping into this role of being the fixer, being the problem solver. Again, coming from a place of being unaware of these things, not really being aware of why you're doing it, your intentions behind it. Is it just that it's like an impulse, there's an impulse to do it? And then also we want to think about hopefully you not picking yourself apart or becoming caught up in perfectionism, right? It's like, my status and my career and how I look amongst the public, how they perceive me, it needs to be so perfect and pristine and so polished. And the slightest little thing, if it's out of place, it's like, there can be that panic, there can be that stress and that worry with that South Node in Virgo. So this leads me on a little bit to the North Node in Pisces, and this can maybe be where you tap into that greater flow, that curiosity about being present with your emotions, present with those emotional habits and patterns that are happening within you. So maybe a part of this is to go within and to get to know yourself on a deeper, more spiritual, more psychological level, making sense maybe of your unconscious patterns and drives and why you do the things you do. And maybe this is about diving into the past a little bit and going, oh, right, okay, so I recognize my mother was like this and my father was like this. And, so it's really quite the journey of self-discovery. It's about becoming more health conscious, more aware of yourself and your body and your nervous system, and slowing it down a little bit, honestly, and this maybe leads me on a little bit. And I did mention this at the very beginning with the overview of the astrology, but for you, we'll bring it up. But Mars is in Cancer and will make that trine to the North Node in Pisces coming into 2025, more around March, April time. But for you, especially with Mars retrograde being in your 8th Sagittarius, so much of this is about your psyche. So much of this is about why you do the things you do. Why you do the things you do. Asking yourself why. Why am I reacting like this? What is this trigger trying to tell me? Our triggers can be amazing teachers. So I think these are the themes that we're really going to see be ushered in for you as the nodes come into your 4th and 10th houses, Sagittarius. Thank you so much. And now we're going to move on to Capricorn. Okay, Capricorn, moving on to you. So the nodes are going to be moving into your 3rd and 9th houses. But firstly, let's explore the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra since July of 2023. All right, so since July of 2023, what has unfolded for you, Capricorn, are these major changes and developments within your home, amongst your family. You have really stepped up, I think, within family settings and family situations, Capricorn. I think you have been brave enough and bold enough to take the first step, to make significant new changes, to enter new chapters and beginnings when it comes to a family scenario. We also can look at this as you being a bit of a leader, a trailblazer, a pioneer when it comes to your emotional needs. So, for instance, advocating for your emotional needs, advocating for yourself largely. So, for instance, being one of the first of your family to go and get support for yourself emotionally. Or this could be about you, as I say, stepping up when it comes to yourself, right? It could be yourself. And again, you being a bit of an innovator, being the first of your family to do that. So whether this be stepping up for yourself, standing up for yourself when it comes to supporting yourself, providing for yourself, it could be a living situation matter, it could be some sort of housing matter, a residency matter, land. Maybe this is about breaking certain ancestry cycles and patterns. You just daring to take the first step to break a cycle, to break a pattern here, Capricorn. At the same time, the South Node has been in your 10th. And so what we're also seeing here for you, Capricorn, is you bringing skills and gifts to do with diplomacy, to do with tact and fairness. And also, beauty, making things appear beautiful, and really the aesthetically pleasing stuff to do with Libra. So you bringing these skills and gifts to your professional lives, to your career path. But we could also see this as your public self just showing up in really beautiful, artistic, creative, elegant ways, possibly. Maybe this is strongly about decoration or refinement, making certain improvements to the way that you show up publicly and really making an impression upon other people in this regard. People wanting to give to you, people liking you, people following you, people subscribing to you, for instance. Yeah, interesting changes here for you, Capricorn, within these areas. Naturally, this could even show up as you coming across as quite well liked by certain employers or managers or bosses. But we also want to think of this as hopefully you easing up on any people-pleasing tendencies, codependency tendencies as well, where it's almost like you give the audience more approval. It's like you give other people's views, other people's feedback more approval than what you would give to yourself. Of course, when we think about this professionally within a business setting, right, Capricorn, you're the sign of business and work and success. And yeah, so when we think about these things, especially within a business setting, a professional setting, it is about giving the audience what they want. There is that element, of course. But if you're doing that to such a point where you're not really aligned with what makes you feel inspired, if you're not really aligning then with that natural creative edge of yours, or you're not really aligning with what your instinct is trying to tell you because you're so caught up in the mental stuff, this is where we might see some issues. And this is also where, again, we go back to the North Node in Aries, and it sort of says, okay, well, you tried that. You tried that thing maybe on YouTube or at work or within this public situation, within this organization you're a part of. You tried it. And then you realize that you were doing it more from a place of other people's approval rather than from a place of, okay, well, independently, what's coming up for you? Creatively, what's coming up for you? So hopefully you've been able to come to terms with these themes that a little bit better. Capricorn. Yes. And hopefully too, we're seeing this as you easing up on the attachments to the public self, right? Attaching to image, attaching to appearances, and then looking more to, okay, well, what's actually happening within me? What do I want? Regardless really of how I might appear to other people or the feedback I receive from other people, what is it that I actually want? Great. Whilst this has all been happening with the nodes, Saturn and Neptune have been transiting your third. So since July of 2023, you have also been really tuning in with your intuition, spiritual guidance, following your intuition largely, right? Being guided by it, being guided also by your imagination, by a world of wonder and curiosity, really aligning with symbolism and mythology and just different art forms. Photography, film, media is a big part of this. Yeah, I think you've been engrossed, absolutely engrossed in the spiritual world, the artistic world, getting lost in a way, getting lost in the fantasy, getting lost in the dream, and tapping into your imagination. This has been a highly mysterious thing for you, almost like a letting go, if you will. But you see, we also see with this Saturn bringing some form, bringing some foundation and structure to the whole process, kind of going, okay, well, this is the creative flow that you have. Well, I'm going to come here and I'm going to support you. I'm going to create some order out of this. Let's make it practical, or let's bring things into formation. And we also could look at this as potential, naturally, blockages or challenges to do with the spiritual. We could even look at this as some limitations or setbacks when it comes to your local environment, when it comes to communication. It's like, I'm not really quite sure if this, self-doubt could come in, pessimistic thoughts could come in as well. So all of these things have also been happening. But hopefully at the same time, we can look at it as greater maturity and greater wisdom coming from these years and from these tests and these setbacks with Saturn. And hopefully you will also notice these shifts, these maturity shifts, these shifts to do with responsibility as the years go on. In that, these experiences that you've been going through, they're here to teach you something. And then we lead on to the nodes changing. So the south node will come into Virgo in your third, and then the north node will come into Pisces. Sorry, in your ninth. My apologies, Capricorn. The south node comes into Virgo in your ninth, and then the north node comes into Pisces in your third. We're going to address the south node in Virgo first. So this is great for you, Capricorn, because what we're going to see is you really applying your worldviews, your teachings, your wider visions, your wider messages, just applying them all really practically. You being able to simplify things, you really sharpening your areas of expertise here, you coming across as well informed, as knowledgeable. We could also look at this as you being quite efficient, right? There's some efficient way, there's some interesting routine or a schedule you develop that's really very clean. It's a very clean order. And so you can draw from these potential gifts of yours as the nodes change. Just as a reminder, the nodes will come into Pisces and Virgo January 2025 for the next 18 months. However, we also want to be mindful of the unconscious ways of you acting in this perfectionistic manner. Okay, where you become all bent out of shape, like, I need to improve this. It needs to be perfect. I need to add more to this. We could also look at this as excessive worrying when it comes to your worldviews, your teachings, what you publish, what you share, what you broadcast out there in the world. We could look at this as you internalizing things, picking yourself apart. We could also possibly look at this as you feeling like you need to fix, right? There's that impulse, the compulsive sort of fixing and mending, and that may be coming out or coming across whenever you share. And maybe it could come across as quite like preachy, or you need to fix this and you need to change this. So hopefully what we can lean toward a little bit is the North Node in Pisces in the third. So what the North Node in Pisces sort of offers you here is a way of delivering your message, hopefully in a more kind of gentle way, in a more tender way. Of course, there is also a place for this Virgo part of it, right? There is. And naturally, this is where we want to think about the nuance. We want to think about the context of the situation. Sometimes people just need to be told straight, okay, you need to fix that. I can't with you. It's that sort of attitude. But I think still, if this becomes to such an extent where it's a lot, right? Or it's you even being, physically impacted by it, where you're getting yourself really caught up in, oh no, well, they said this and he said that, she said that. Oh, it's just that frantic panic with Virgo. And like, there's a part of Virgo that finds it difficult to take criticism. Okay. So if it becomes to such an extent where you go overboard, maybe this is where we can really lean towards the North Node. And hopefully you can see that it's more about coming across from a place of love, right? You can hold space for both help and love. You can share what you think can change or needs to be fixed, but hopefully in a more compassionate, feeling-based way, right? But then again, we could also look at this as you recognizing what isn't yours to fix. It's not up to me. I'm not here to give you all the solutions. Who said I was here to give you all the solutions? Actually, I think you need to fix that or manage that for yourself. And so this is where we notice with the North Node in Pisces is this presence. It's to be present with yourself. It's to be mindful of your thoughts, right? You know what thoughts are coming in, that result in this jumping in to sort of fix situations. And so it's sort of like being able to bring greater awareness to this stillness, to this sense of tranquility, this sort of inner peace, like, no, I can't do that. I can't be there. Capricorn, you're very much about being responsible, and you can certainly be the ones when there is a crisis. You're like, okay, yeah, let's manage this. You can keep calm in a crisis. You can often be the designated sort of supporter, driver, provider, friend, whatever. You can come across as this parental figure, basically, but maybe, hopefully, the North Node in Pisces can assist you with some healthy forms of, okay, yes, I can help you, South Node in Virgo, but I'm not going to do it to such an extent where I'm going against my own morals, I'm going against my health. I need to be aware of what I also need. I need to be aware of my own inner peace, my inner calm. It's not to say that life is always about being calm and peaceful and everything like that, but we are really talking about times whenever there are these extremes that occur. And so, yeah, it's not necessarily about burying your head in the sand or avoiding things. It's just more about recognizing when you're jumping in to fix unnecessarily, frantically. Equally, though, just be mindful of the whole martyrdom, savior stuff, victim stuff with Pisces. Yes, healthy discernment. And I even especially see this, showing up when it comes to siblings, immediate family members, right? It's almost like, oh, help me, I'm over here. So yeah, hopefully with Saturn, especially your chart ruler being in your third house for a good while, you've established some healthy boundaries and healthy barriers for your own pace, for your own health, Capricorn. Okay, Capricorn, thank you so much. And now on to Aquarius. So Aquarius, let's talk about the nodes changing for you. All right. Firstly, what I want to do is I want to think about how since July of 2023, the North Node has been in Aries in your third, and the South Node has been in Libra in your ninth. Okay. Aquarius, this has been such a great time for you to really get in touch with what your authentic voice is. What I further want to mention about this, and of course, this can also apply largely to all of the signs, right? Because Saturn and Neptune will be on the move in 2025. So Saturn and Neptune will come into Aries throughout 2025 for a short period of time. The official transits won't start until 2026, but in the 2025 horoscope for you, Aquarius, I talked about speaking with confidence. But you see, well, with the shifts happening, right, coming into Aries. But you see, the North Node has already ushered in these kinds of themes for you. So this has been about your voice. This has been about, okay, well, your logic, your reasoning, what are your views, your opinions when it comes to subjects you study, when it comes to how you educate yourself. This is about you really innovating in some way, shape, or form. This is about you getting in tune with what it is that you want to say, how you mean to come across. And I think as well, there is a level of bravery here involved, right? To be daring and brave and bold enough to be able to speak up. Perhaps when other people keep quiet, when other people don't really say the thing, you're out there saying the thing. You're out there maybe using logic in a very straightforward way, and then you get people thinking, you get people quite curious. Also, we can look at this as you standing up for yourself, defending yourself when it comes to just communication in general. So if someone says something and you really think to yourself, no, that doesn't align with me, you being bold enough to say, no, it doesn't align with me. That's not what I want. Could also be you being bold enough to say what you want when it comes to sibling relationships, neighbor relationships, speaking up boldly, confidently when it comes to chit chat, things like that. You've really been growing within these areas, Aquarius, which is really remarkable. And at the same time, with the South Node being in your ninth, I mean, this is also about you coming across as quite balanced in your views and your opinions. So, whenever you really think about your understanding of things, and when you explore the abstract, when you consider your worldviews and your belief systems and things like that, your morals, your ethics, you coming across as quite balanced as you do that. You coming across as, oh, okay, well, I can see both sides or all sides. I'm really trying to weigh out my options here. I can see the pros for this. I can see the cons for this. And so whenever you do go to communicate, maybe it comes out as quite fair and somewhat diplomatic and tactful, rather than as being maybe shouty or aggressive or really in people's faces, if you will, okay? But hey, with that being said, we could also look at this as your very publications and what you publish, what you broadcast, what you share there, uh, coming across as quite beautiful, as quite poetic or relatable, really making things relatable to people. So we've been seeing these significant changes for you, but we've also been seeing the times when, okay, we want to think about the South Node in Libra here, truly, the times when you might sit on the fence, times whenever you might observe overly a lot when it comes to certain views that are shared, or it could be you maybe needing just extra time to think things through, but before you get the words out, it's like it's already gone, it's already on to the next thing. We could also look at this as possible people-pleasing tendencies, codependency tendencies. So there could be some deeply held beliefs that you have about these areas, right? So hopefully over the past, 18 months or so, you've been able to maybe make greater sense of why this is. We think about even the ninth house, it's so much about the why, why we believe the things we believe in. And it's also about our higher meaning and really trying to understand, where people are coming from, especially in the case of Libra here. So, yeah, a lot of this, I think, this transit has been about you asking yourself the why and the bigger questions, the higher meaning of things, thinking about the abstract, thinking about your worldviews more deeply. But then it's also about how you relate these things to other people and how you connect and share with other people from that space. Okay, as the nodes have been in these signs since July of 2023, Saturn, which is one of your rulers, Saturn and Neptune have been in your second house. So we've also been noticing some limitations, blockages to do with your finances and your resources, your belongings, possessions. But this has also been a great time of spiritual growth, spiritual insight, drawing from your intuition largely, recognizing even what your intuition is saying about your self-worth and your self-esteem, how much you value yourself. This is so much about your worth as well, just in general. And how that worth is maybe connected in a little bit with your finances and the blockages that you've been experiencing. Is it that there are potential money mindset challenges there, where it's sort of like you felt like you need to work extra hard to make all this money, but actually whenever you take the foot off the gas, so to speak, when you decide to slow down a bit, right? This is where things just seem to come up, right? These ideas seem to come up, these dreams, these visions, they seem to for, form in ways where you're like, oh, okay, well, actually, maybe I don't have to do so much. Maybe in order to make my financial dreams happen, to make them a reality. It's not about pushing aggressively and demanding, that I make all this money and it needs to be this amount and this much or whatever. Maybe a part of it is about listening to your inner guidance, what you maybe can walk away from, what you need to let go of, and how you can surrender in some way, shape, or form, but also equally healthy limitations, healthy boundaries, healthy emotional boundaries, healthy spiritual boundaries as well, really taking care of yourself. And hopefully, too, being able to come from a place of, my worth is not dependent on how much money I make. I have to think about the fact that I am a person. I'm not a toy. I'm not a commodity. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings. Oh, I think this has been pretty major for you, Aquarius. Something in my teeth. But hey, at the same time, I think this has also been your opportunity to address any wishful thinking or building castles in the sky when it comes to your resources, for instance. And then so Saturn can show up as you being somewhat more sensible and realistic and responsible about your resources and your possessions and your finances. Okay, this then leads me on to the South Node coming into your 8th in Virgo, and then the North Node coming into Pisces in your 2nd. Just a reminder, this will be from January 2025 up until the summer of 2026. So let's begin with the South Node in Virgo first. This is a good opportunity, Aquarius, for you to maybe do some practical things, right? To really show up in practical ways when it comes to your psychology. So, for instance, what are some everyday, practical, simple things, simple things that you can do for yourself so that maybe you don't spiral out of control when it comes to perfectionism and worrying and stressing out about the future, for instance. This is about simple, smaller, calculated, measured steps that you can take. This is about efficiency, greater effectiveness when it comes to your unconscious, your shadow, facing your shadow, integrating it, hopefully, holding space a little bit for the part of you that can, be in this panic mode, right? It's like the stress levels for you can be intense at times because maybe you're worrying so much about the future. What if this? What if that? But then also maybe there's parts of it where you can just go from this place of nervous system overdrive, jumping just compulsively to the next thing. I need to fix this. I need to help this. I need to serve this person. I need to be here, blah, 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 and Aquarius, my goodness, you can be such generous, kind, thoughtful people. You are the humanitarians of the zodiac. But I think it's interesting because you also do reach a point, you do reach a breaking point where you're like, why am I doing this? This is not serving me. This is not good for me. You're not here to baby people. You're not here to parent people. You're not here to, hold someone's hand and walk them through life, right? You're here to be there to care and support people, but you also understand that people need to be independent for themselves. So, yeah, I think the South Node in Virgo could be this opportunity for you to really become clear about your own health, right? Your health and the extremes that you may go to in some way, shape, or form. And if you find yourself going to those extremes, hopefully you can bring yourself into this greater alignment for your health, this is for your well-being. And then the other thing I suppose to mention about this is another gift or skill we could look at this as, Aquarius, is you drawing from your ability to make divination or the occult, a bit useful for people, helpful for people. Maybe also this is about small tweaks and improvements when it comes to intimacy, vulnerability, getting deeper into things with people. This is about trust, opening up, things like that. Okay, then we notice with the North Node being in Pisces, again, with the South Node though in Virgo, a lot of this is about your personal development. There's self-development here with relation to making sense of your subconscious drives and motivations. Anyway, yes, the North Node in Pisces will be in the second. So this is also about leaning more towards that of your spiritual values. Think of it this way. With Saturn being one of your rulers, so Saturn has been in Pisces since March of 2023. What have you already established as a spiritual value during that time? What has come up for you and you've went, yeah, okay, whenever I really feel into this, yeah, this is my value. This is my limitation. This is a barrier. This is something that I want to stay true to. I want to stick to. I want to commit myself to this. So hopefully we can look at this as you aligning with your personal values and how those personal values will be related to something spiritual or emotional. Maybe it's something related to fantasy, escapism, solitude, retreating, making time for yourself, committing to some time in solitude, for instance, valuing your time in solitude, needing your space. Okay. And then also we could look at it as you coming from this place of being in the present, right? To be present with yourself when it comes to your financial position, for instance, right? It's sort of like, yes, there can be a plan, there can be a structure that is in place. And it is good to, of course, plan and to recognize the steps you can put in place, the building blocks you can put in place when it comes to your resources. But the North Node in Pisces still sort of taps on your shoulder and says, okay, can you surrender a little bit here? Can you let go a little bit here? Can you accept that sometimes in life, and well, most of the times in life, you can't really control this situation and you just have to let it go, try and not freak out, try and not worry excessively. And I know that that's easier said than done. I get it. But hopefully, it's about being able to come from a place of greater peace and greater calm rather than this frantic nervous system is just shot and you're just panicked. Again, I understand that it's easier said than done, but hopefully there are some spiritual practices or some ways that you can cope there, something that you've put in place for yourself, Aquarius. Thank you so much, Aquarius. And now on to Pisces. Okay, Pisces, let's talk about you, the star of the show. I say this because as the South Node enters Virgo from January of 2025 until the summer of 2026, the North Node will enter your sign. So a lot of people are really following your lead, essentially. And before we get into that though, what I want to do is I want to explore where the nodes have been since July of 2023 for you. As the South Node has been in your 8th house in Libra, the North Node has been in your 2nd house in Aries. So with the North Node in Aries, in your 2nd house, a lot has really developed and changed for you when it comes to your personal values, when it comes to your self-worth. You have been really bold, really courageous. You've been standing up for what you believe in. You've been defending your position when it comes to your values. And I think you do tend to value honesty, bravery. There is a sense of straightforwardness, I think, here as well, valuing that. And valuing the goals that you set out for yourself and having this attitude of, I can do this. I am a warrior. I have what it takes. And being a bit of an inspiration for other people in many ways in this regard. But you see, this is also about, with the North Node in Aries, your ability to really stretch yourself, to grow in your experiences when it comes to your resources, your finances, how you earn a living has been pretty huge. It's just the things that you've done as a way to, try new things with the North Node in Aries. Of course, Aries is so much about new beginnings and starting things, leaping into action, jumping into action. So, in many ways, I think that you have, when it comes to your finances and how you earn a living, whether this be starting your own business or deciding to start that project that you've been putting off, whether this be maybe buying something that belongs to you and you only. This could be something significant about your physical security, right? And there's this independent streak with Aries. So yes, this is where we notice your ability to grow and how you've grown since July of 2023, simultaneously with the South Node being in Libra in your 8th. There has also been ushered in levels of great collaboration and cooperation when it comes to shared resources and shared finances. For example, this could be about you unifying with a business partner, you unifying with someone else, in some way, shape, or form, right? Collaborating in this regard. And because of that unity, because of that collaboration, which it could be a business matter, but because of that, you then finding that, well, finances seem to build in many ways, or it's that you can generate a lot more because you're in a team, because you are together. Maybe there's something here about splitting resources, splitting finances. But hey, it could also be about this shared resource stuff through a lens of, okay, maybe a relationship didn't work out so well, and so there's still maybe a bit of a custody situation happening, or it's about sharing time, or sharing resources, or having to split your time when it comes to your child, when it comes to your project, when it comes to a pet, just as different possibilities here, of course. But hey, this could also be about you really refining your gifts, refining your skills when it comes to divination, when it comes to the occult. Maybe also this is about psychological exploration. So you being a part of this this partnership, or more of a collaboration, right? Where you're able to dive into your psyche, you're able to maybe explore more parts of yourself because of that other aspect, because there are other people involved and there's this mirroring, there's reflecting that's happening. So really great for self-development, I think. And at the same time, we've also seen for you, hopefully, you easing up on any qualities where there is people pleasing, there's codependency, there's this becoming so tangled up in the other, and that's intense and it's emotional, and there's a lot of trust issues, and maybe vulnerability comes into it, secrecy and lies come into it, right? All that really heavy stuff. So hopefully, yes, you've been able to separate yourself, or to create greater independence in your life, where it's like, no, this is too much for me. It's not my drama. It's not my chaos. Okay, here's the other thing. Speaking of chaos, what we've noticed is that as the nodes have been in Aries and Libra since July of 2023, Saturn and Neptune have also been in your first. Okay. What we're noticing here then, Pisces, is that you have been setting very firm and strict, perhaps, boundaries between yourself and others. You've been able to go, hey, I'm feeling the emotions, the emotional pull, where I'm being swept up by the chaos, I'm being swept up by this really intense situation. I need to step back. I need to think about what I need here. my personal needs, what I can do to support myself, to anchor myself. I also see this as you committing to a certain plan. I see this as you bringing some form or structure to your life, you taking responsibility for yourself, for your body, for maybe mistakes you've made or for past situations. We think about, for instance, with this karma aspect to Saturn, maybe if there is a certain regret you have or a sticky situation you were once in, Saturn is almost saying, okay, well, how can you rectify that situation? How can you make peace with it? How can you forgive yourself and forgive other people? Things like that, I think, have happened for you, Pisces. But it's still, I think, a big part of it. I still think a big part of this is committing to an aim, a goal, a plan, whilst also having the flexibility to be adaptable, right? To still be somewhat adaptable, to be open to change, to align yourself more on a spiritual level, perhaps, with things. Still, essentially, I think a big part of this is about healthy separation between you and another. And we could also then look at it as with Neptune in your sign. Of course, Neptune is one of your rulers. You, over all of these years, of course, Neptune has been in your sign since 2011, but you have really been on this spiritual journey, perhaps, that's full of synchronicities and symbolism, or maybe it's that you've been on a bit of a journey when it comes to the fantasy world, or maybe healthy escapism or healthy forms of solitude, being able to really go within and to reflect and to ponder, to wander, to be in the present, to remain in the flow. All of these themes have really came up for you, and it's been a really spiritually enlightening journey for you, Pisces. It's really amazing. But you see, with Saturn then coming into your sign as well, it's almost like you can bring form to the spiritual, or you can see, okay, well, this is how I can make it real, right? I can make this real, or this is how I can maybe guide others or help others with this information, with this ancient wisdom, right? Wow. So this then leads us on to the South Node and the North Node. As the South Node comes into Virgo, the North Node will come into your sign. As a reminder, from January of 2025 up until the summer of 2026. Let's begin with the South Node in Virgo first. Right. So the South Node coming into Virgo in your 7th can indicate that within your relationships and partnerships, there are going to be some tweaks and changes you make. I think this is you coming across as a bit of a problem solver, a helper, maybe making some improvements to business, client relationships. Maybe this is also about making things more practical and useful for people, having an efficient way of showing up when it comes to clients and customers there. Could also be about you becoming quite mindful, quite health conscious when it comes to relationship dynamics. But then again, this is what leads me on to how with the South Node in Virgo, there can be this challenge to do with feeling this impulse to want to fix, to want to mend, to want to help. And then at the expense of your own health, your own well-being. There could be some challenges here then to do with self-care or being able to actually make time for your everyday needs, your everyday habits, things like that. So we could look at this as the compulsive sort of fixing others and you getting caught up in that loop, the Virgo loop, where you get caught up in perfectionism. And it's like, if you don't do it perfectly, if you don't help that person the way they demand to be helped, or you feel that they need to be helped, then you must be punished and you must criticize yourself. We could also look at this as the punishing, super overly critical parts of yourself, maybe playing out within relationships and partnerships. It could even be, Pisces, it's that significant others or partners are the ones who are really criticizing you and just really triggering you and really getting to you. So there could be some curiosities there, right? Things to explore about those triggers, or what's happening within those relationship dynamics. But you see, this is where the North Node in your sign comes in, because what we're going to see then for you is more of this focus on healthier ways of showing up within partnerships, also from this aspect of yourself too, right? Sort of think of it as, we've been talking about with Aries, the North Node was in Aries before you. So with Aries, a lot of it has been about them, showing up as leaders, being quite independent about their goals and their aims and, well, themselves. So in a similar fashion, this is also about you showing up for yourself, but it's in a different way. This is more about trying to be in the present, trying to breathe out when you can. This is about surrendering in some way, shape, or form, to perhaps surrender to the unknown. So, for instance, let's say it is that during this transit, you find yourself acting in this subconscious way, right? Where you're trying to fix, you're trying to help partners and friends and business associates and things like that. Hopefully then you can bring it back to greater center, right? The awareness of, hold on, why am I doing this? Where is this coming from? What is it within me that this is bringing up? How can I be present with myself? Whenever I'm even being criticized, for instance, from other people, what comes up within me when that happens? Is there a point to the criticism, or is it unnecessary, critical views coming from other people which aren't actually so kind? And how can you maybe show some discernment there? There's that differentiation there. And then also, hopefully, we can look at this as you coming from a place of greater curiosity when it comes to that flow, being in the flow, and hopefully trying not to worry so much about the future. And this is the thing with the North Node being in first. Well, the first house is about new beginnings and new chapters. So, what can happen at times whenever we're faced with a new chapter or this transitional period is a lot of fears can come up to the surface, a lot of thoughts and feelings about the next step, and self-doubt can also creep in. So hopefully in some way here, Pisces, you can look at it as an opportunity, right? To look at these new chapters to do with yourself and to do with your body, to do with maybe exciting new aims and goals. We can look at it, identity changes really, but we can look at it as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to expand. But I think even just a key part of this is about being in the present, to remain in the present, and to come from a place of curiosity and wonder, and to just be in the now, right? To be in the now. And if you find yourself just getting caught up in all of the maybe potentials of confusion or victimhood or feelings of helplessness and things like that, because Pisces, these things can often play out within your life. But if you find yourself getting caught up in all of this, how can you grounding yourself? Maybe some interesting, useful spiritual practices can really support you and help you. If or when, of course, you find yourself getting caught up in these particular feelings, that is. But hey, still look at it as a new chapter, something exciting upon the horizon. Even think about it this way to close off. Neptune, which is one of your rulers, will move into your second for just a short period of 2025. And then the full transit will begin in 2026. And then your other ruler, Jupiter, enters Cancer in your fifth. So all of this is to say, get excited about expansion and delightful experiences, just more delightful experiences to do with your creativity, to do with following your heart's desire, to do with children, to do with hobbies, some leisure time, some time off, time with family. And of course, as well, to use your imagination when it comes to your finances and think about your new dreams and visions to do with finances and your possessions to some extent, Pisces. Thank you so much, Pisces. And with that, this has been the horoscopes for the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for listening. If you would like to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And if you did enjoy your horoscopes today, you can always buy me a coffee. But in general, I just hope that you have found your horoscopes to be helpful. Good luck during this transit. There's obviously more to talk about, but this has been just hopefully some practical guidance, useful guidance for you to help you along your journey. You can always like the video if you did enjoy it, and make sure to subscribe for more. And I will talk to you in the next one. Bye, everyone.